Welcome to the Legends of Podcasting. This week we'll be reviewing the latest feature-length animated movie from DC Comics, Gotham by Gaslight. Historically, DC does a stellar job with its animated films, so how does this one measure up? Well, we'll see. Don't forget, if you enjoy this podcast, be sure to like and comment on our numerous social media platforms, as well as subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and anywhere else where good podcasts live. To help out, we've even stuck the links in the description for this episode. Now, joining me as usual in the Wave Rider of podcasting, I have
Stuart,
Jane,
Robert,
and Ross.
And I'm Liam. Now let's get this show started.
During the 21st century, comic books conquered the world and murdered everyone's spare time. I have assembled an elite team to hunt comic book stuff down throughout media and to cover their rise to power. Unfortunately, my plan is opposed by general life obligations, meaning instead of daily, we can do this weekly, thanks to something we have sworn our allegiance to: time management. In the future, we ourselves may not be heroes, but if we succeed, we'll be remembered as the Legends of Podcasting.
Now, as usual, this is a spoiler warning. There are spoilers in this podcast. Now, to start things off, why don't we do a little background on this and begin by taking a look at the comic, which I believe was the first Elseworlds story.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, that one. I didn't realise until I looked at the Wikipedia article for this that initially it started life in 1989 as a story of the Batman that Brian Augustyn had written, and it wasn't until the Elseworlds label was founded a little later on that they retroactively editorially made it the first Elseworlds story. So, which is interesting. But yeah, obviously it's published in 1989 originally, written by Brian Augustyn, with pencils by then yet to be Hellboy creator Mike Mignola, whose artwork lends a really gritty, grimy feel to both Gotham and London in the comic. The story itself is reasonably short for what it is. Basically, essentially, it's someone thought up the idea of what if Batman had a fight with Jack the Ripper and sort of fleshed it out a few more pages. But despite being short, it's fairly well received popularly by among critics and fans, most recently reaching number 11 on the IGN list of the 25 best Batman graphic novels. Obviously, it's popular enough as well to spawn a sequel in 1991 called Master of the Future, which is set in the same universe and takes place some years after the initial comic, some of the elements of which make it into the film itself.
All right, thanks for that. That's some interesting stuff on the comic. Now, what do we know about the film before we get into the actual review?
Okay, so I've got a couple of facts I sort of looked up before I actually even started watching the movie at all, just to know about it. So the screenplay was done by James Krieg. So he's been known for producing Justice League Actions from 2016 to 2017. He also did the Green Lantern, the animated series. That was back in 2013 to 2014. But in terms of actors, so for Batman, you've actually got it being voiced by Bruce Greenwood. So he's the captain, or the old captain of the Enterprise in the new set of Star Trek's movies, the Chris Pine ones. So yeah, he was in that. He's also done Young Justice. He was in Kingsman, The Golden Circle. He was the president of the United States. He's also been in American Dad. He also did Batman Under the Red Hood. So, a pretty good Batman.
The greatest DC movie animated that they've done so far.
He's definitely one of my favourite Batman voices. Sure.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Or is it the greatest one? Does Gotham by Gaslight beat it? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Let's do a little walkthrough of the movie first of all. Who's going to start us off?
I will start you off with that one, Ian. So, it opens up sort of panning across an old Gotham, which looks pretty amazing. And the music, I've said, you guys noticed, the music in this I thought was so well done. It's sort of like an old sort of organ or accordion or something. And through the film, especially in the beginning, I definitely got feels of the '89 Batman theme, which is like one of the best. And also a little bit there was of the animated series as well, I thought, which was really nice.
Yeah, it was, throughout the whole film, it was very appropriate to the setting and the whole story. It was great.
The artwork really reminds me a lot of the animation, especially of the animated series. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, I was going to also say the music. There's a little bits in there that reminded me a lot of Lex Luthor's theme from Batman v Superman, with the old just real deep keyboard kind of dun 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 dun.
Yeah, I can see that.
I felt that, especially when Ivy was being chased. I thought.
Yeah, loved the artwork and the music on this. Thought it was really cool.
Yeah, so I like what they did with the artwork. I'm not a huge fan of the way the comic's done, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, I like the way, as you say, it sort of touched on the animated series, which I believe we all grew up with, so we're all massive fans of. So after the music, it pans across, and you go into a sort of I would say gentleman's club, where you see a lady on stage dancing, and quite obviously straight away you notice it's Poison Ivy, which is a classic little Easter egg straight away from a character. You then see her walking down the streets by herself, because that's what you do in a creepy alleys. You walk by yourself.
Don't do that. I do that every night.
Yeah, most people do. But so you see her walking, and you see sort of a creepy figure walking behind her, and obviously from sort of tales, you know who it's going to be. It's going to be Jack the Ripper. And I was actually quite shocked. I haven't actually checked the rating of this film as yet, because it's only out digitally. But you obviously see him kill her in quite a brutal way. And she also hints at doing sort of adult, going back to his place and stuff. And there's actually sort of blood gets obviously shown and things like that. So I'm guessing it's probably like a lot of the other DC animated movies, maybe a 12.
I think most of them are a 12, but I think there are a few out there that are like a 15. I think like the second part of The Dark Knight Returns is a 15, because that bit is quite bloody as well.
Yes. So which is a great thing about them is that they can do that.
Apparently it's an R rating.
What? Sorry, James?
It's an R rating, apparently.
Really? Okay.
Well, it's R-rated for America. We always get R-rated as 15. Like the Wolverine was only a 15 over here. Logan, sorry.
So yeah, obviously you see her get killed, and it sort of pans away to these three kids trying to mug this couple. And Batman jumps down in his usual way, which he looks amazing. I have to say, not being a massive fan of the way the costume looks in the comic and sort of in images, I actually thought it looked really good in this with the way they drew it, and sort of it had all the details and everything on his belt, and even the way the cape sort of droops out like it's an old sort of fashioned coat, like sort of posh gentleman wearing that in that day and age, which is really nice. And he obviously scares the kids off, and you actually hear two of the kids' names straight away as Jason and Timmy, which sort of hints straight away. So there's a third one who's the oldest, even though they don't say his name. He's obviously going to be Dick. So there's actually the three Robins already put straight into the movie. I thought was fantastic.
I love that.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly. Which is it's a great thing to do. I mean, they're not in the comic. They didn't have to put them in, but just whoever wrote this and sort of mixed it up so much that they've actually added in Poison Ivy and the three Robins within the first 10 minutes of the movie.
I mean, you say they put Poison Ivy in there. She got weeded out early.
Take your terrible jokes.
Do a sound effect of a tumbleweed going across the screen.
Yes. But saying that, I think we'll talk about it more at the end. But it's one of the big, differences between the comic and the film is just how much the Batman universe they managed to incorporate into the animated feature. In the comic, it's fairly sparse. It's just really Batman and Gordon are the only two characters that carry over.
Yeah, they definitely extended it more.
Yeah, they did some good world building in this. They sort of dropped in little nuggets everywhere, which I thought was quite cool.
It is really cool that they're taking these old books and then now they're turning them into these great animated movies. I'm really looking forward to when they do the Death and Return of Superman.
Oh,
but
yeah.
That's
definitely.
a conversation for another day, I think.
Right, yeah. So anyway, he saves the couple from the married couple from the kids and beats the sort of big boss guy up, which is great. And I actually thought, going through the film, but it was actually quite nice to see a Batman. I'm guessing he's quite early on in his career. That wasn't just straight up, I'm going to I'm just going to beat you up really easily. And he was actually getting his ass handed to him quite a lot in it. And I love when Batman is awesome and he can't be beaten. I actually thought having it like this in this sort of story was actually quite interesting. That it was actually going to be a difficult fight to have when he meets Jack the Ripper. So yeah, after that happens, it then pans to sort of the next day, and you see a lot of people crowding around for this sort of fair, which is meant to be the sort of World of Tomorrow fair, I believe. And in this, there's a barrage of loads of people. You've got Hugo Strange, obviously from the comics. You've got Commissioner Gordon, Bullock. You've got Leslie, who in the comics is obviously the person who takes it, who knows about Batman, is sort of basically the nurse that helps him quite a lot in it. And the way that, again, they threaded all these people in quite seamlessly, I thought, into the film. and you would only, if you were a fan of the comics, which if you're watching this film, you most likely are, would actually know who the characters are. And obviously you've got then Alfred as well, who's played by some great voices. And I know we spoke about obviously who Batman was, but Alfred being Anthony Head is a great English actor from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and back in the day people used to watch that. And it sort of sets up the film nicely of what's going to happen. So this sort of young Bruce Wayne who's just come back from being abroad.
It's certainly a very different take on like the Batman that you've seen a lot of recently, wasn't it? Like, it's both familiar and it was distinctly new at the same time.
Yeah, like you said, Stu, it certainly feels like he's at the start of his career here. He's just literally come back from Europe, from training overseas, I would assume, and he's fresh into his career, and obviously looking to make a difference in Gotham. So it's a different take on it from someone where we come into the story and he's already established. Exactly,
yeah, exactly. And I say the way the characters are fed in. And one I forgot to mention, which is like quite a main character in the story, is Selena Kyle, who you don't even get sort of introduced by name. You just sort of see her in the background, but you can instantly tell who it is just from the look of her, which I think is a great thing. They've sort of taken the iconic look of a lot of characters and put them in this film, sort of in obviously Victorian dress and things like that, but you can still tell who they are, which I think is great. And then sort of moving on to the next part after that, it goes to the next night, which I believe someone else is cutting in.
So, so they sort of go from there. Batman sort of gets in, or Bruce Wayne rather, gets in the horse and carriage and goes off with Leslie. And that's where she sort of starts talking about, the travesties that are going on. Jack the Ripper is, killing these women, and like the police don't seem to be doing anything or want to do anything for whatever reason. But Bruce sort of says, don't mind yourself, carry on looking after the orphans. I'm sure someone else will take care of it. So yeah, it cuts to the next night, and I must admit, this next scene I was really impressed with, because I always try to pay attention to the movie. You know how some movies you just can't like get drawn into, but so what happens is it follows Selena walking through the streets at night, down a creepy alleyway, as we said earlier, as you do. And it very draws you in, the atmosphere, the music, even the drawing, it gets very dark, it lures you in, you see like one way's blocked off, so she goes another way, she turns around another corner, it's blocked off, but eventually you sort of see this shadow following her, and it's Jack the Ripper. And eventually, the inevitable chase scene starts. So she starts running off down one way, and she runs off into this building, and which, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a meat house she runs in at that point?
Yeah, it's an old meat factory that seems to be a bit abandoned, but for some reason still has meat in it.
yeah. I mean, all that good produce just going to waste. Yeah, so I think it's at this point, she's backing up, desperately trying to find somewhere to hide from Ripper, and she sort of like gets backed into a corner, and he's there, and he's coming up to stab her, and then suddenly that's when Batman appears. And you see this sort of very good, like, initial attack from Batman. You say, here we go, it's going to be typical, take it down. But no, he actually puts up a pretty good fight. But eventually, you have this one moment where Selena sort of like pauses and stops, and she starts undoing the side of her dress, and you think, oh God, what's going on? And then suddenly, there we go. She breaks out a whip and starts trying to have her wicked way.
I thought she was trying to kill Jack the Ripper, but maybe she's trying to...
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? At that point, I was very confused. I was just like, is she trying to kill him? What is she trying to do? I just did not know anymore. But yeah,
it's a good callback to her character as Catwoman in the comics, in that she uses a whip as her main form of getting around, and also for attack and defense. But
it also shows that she's not actually scared of him. I think sort of slightly getting that backwards, but I think she initially is sort of backing into the corner in the meat factory, and she gets the whip out first, doesn't she, and tries to fight him.
Yeah, she was. You find out after the fight's concluded a bit later on that she was initially looking for Jack the Ripper, because she's fed up with the police not taking things into matters, and she's taking matters into her own hands, trying to track down the man and
she wants to protect the women of the city, because no one's bothering to do anything.
He mentions during the film if it was men being killed, more would be done. So it's very much sort of set in that era where women are.
It's true to her form in the comics, where she protects one particular part of Gotham City when she turns to becoming a good guy. In this, she's concerned with the women of a lower class that are being picked off by the Ripper, who are happen to live in this particular one area of the city, and that's all she's concerned about, really. But not to say that's shortening her view, but she's definitely trying to look out for her own and protect them.
So eventually it sort of turns out that she was intentionally trying to catch Jack the Ripper, but there's this hole in the floor. I think it's just some sort of drop to the floor below, which Batman, sort of pulls, and he falls down thinking he's captured him. And she's like, "Oh no, what have you done?" And when they look down, inevitably the bad guy's gone. And Batman starts checking, is she all right and everything, and she sort of starts shrugging him off. I'm fine, I don't need a lift home or anything like that. And then before she turns around to sort of say, thank you very much, you may kindly leave, he's done his normal trick and vanished.
Classic Batman.
Yeah, always. So following from that, it sort of cuts to a house where we find it's actually Jim Gordon waking up from a nightmare of his wife being hurt, and you sort of have this nice conversation with him and his wife, and she says, "Oh, you're up all these late nights, purging the scum of Gotham. It's taking its toll on you and all this." And eventually, he goes outside, and Batman's there. And, you have the classic relationship between them almost, which just seems to be starting. I got the impression of.
Yeah, it's kind of clear that Jim doesn't trust Batman at this point in time, but Batman's trying to make a case of they should work together to help bring things down. They sort of come to an agreement, and Jim sort of doesn't he agrees to give Batman some information on the Ripper from the police case, but basically, not they'll leave it on the roof of the courthouse, and Batman shouldn't come back to his house because it's his sanctuary kind of thing. He doesn't want his house. I think he says he doesn't want his house being corrupted by everything that's going on in Gotham. He wants it to be a safe place.
Yeah, exactly. He wants it to remain pure, as it were. So he gives him this bit of information, and it then cuts to Wayne Manor, and you see, you start to see the detective side of Bruce Wayne or Batman, because he's analyzing this or looking at this evidence, trying to get a profile on Jack the Ripper, trying to figure out some information. So you start to see almost the classic Batman that you normally see everywhere else. So Batman instantly gets up to sort of say that he's going, right, I'm going to go out in my evening attire, to which Alfred has already sort of given him his suit. He's just like, oh, I actually meant my other suit, but fine, I'll take this one. So we see him cut to a night out with his best friend from school, Harvey Dent, which I thought was an interesting twist for them to do. They go to this show where it's like it's like a dancing girl show, basically, and then you actually spot that the lead lady taking it on is actually Selena Kyle. At the end of the show, they go backstage to start hanging out together, or just sort of talking, because Harvey Dent seems to be particularly interested in her. And they just go off on a wander together, sort of talking about the state of Gotham and how no one was ever interested or whatever. And eventually they get to Bruce Wayne's club, which is only for men, but he seems, as if he is genuinely so he's just oh, I'm sorry, I wish you could come in. Cut to next second, and they've dressed her up in a suit and tux and everything and top hat, and she snuck in with them.
Feminism.
I thought it was sort of, again, remained true to her character almost a little bit, sneaky disguises, getting where she shouldn't be, and all this.
I thought that as well. I mean, it's worth mentioning that this is set in the Victorian era, obviously, and there's supplementaries to the suffragette movement and women sort of coming out and being trodden down by the man a bit, which is it's just nice background and world building to show that that's still happening in this time period. So.
Yeah, exactly. So then they're talking about. I forget what specifically they're talking about, but I think Bruce has got a particular interest in Selena, that he knows that she's not all that she appears to be, because obviously he knows what she was trying to do when he was Batman. And she also pegs that he's got a detective mind or something like that. It's oh, you should be more interested than the sort of petty troubles of the billionaire or whatever. And then as they're talking, he's suddenly, between them, they realise who is sort of like the target, who the general profile of people he's attacking. And he has a sudden realisation that it's probably Leslie who's going to be attacked next.
Yeah, that's quite a good scene, I thought, because it's got the bit also where she calls him out on not actually drinking all night as well.
Yeah, they kind of notice things about each other, and they're doing the whole Sherlockian, from the modern Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock series, where they're kind of noticing clues about each other that are not quite all they seem, which I thought was a nice little touch.
He even calls her out on a few things, doesn't he? Because she says, what makes you think that? And he goes, because of it's like abrasion on your arm and this kind of, all this stuff. And then she sort of gets him back with he goes, we've been drinking. He goes, no, you've been throwing your drinks in plant pots all evening. And he sort of looks quite shocked.
Yeah, so it is very much like, I'll save this more towards the end when we get to thoughts of feeling, but it definitely feels very much more emphasis on like the detective part of Batman, like sort of detective, almost to a Sherlock level.
Well, yeah, so he even quotes Sherlock at the end of the film, which I thought was quite good.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Trained by this guy, and his favourite quote was that sort of famous Sherlock quote. So
yeah. So they were talking for ages. They've noticed all these things about each other, detective things like working out, you've been doing this all evening, you've been doing this, and they get onto the topic, and then they suddenly realise, or at least Bruce realises who the next target's going to be.
So then we cut to the convent where Sister Leslie is helping out a homeless woman who's obviously a bit drunk before heading out into a graveyard to pray at a statue. She's approached from behind by a dark shadow who is revealed to be Jack the Ripper. Who promptly, after a brief back and forth with Sister Leslie, refuses to beg. The Ripper slashes her down. Bruce hears the scream, arriving just too late to save her, and finds her body crumpled on the floor, and notices on the ground a pin from his club at the scene. He's also spotted by the homeless lady that was being helped out by Leslie before, who arrives also just too late to save Leslie and spots Bruce kneeling over the corpse, which will be relevant a bit later on. Back at Wayne Manor, Alfred tries to find Bruce to find that he's in his secret attic. And he's busy at work.
Attic, not the Bat Cave. I was like, what's going on?
That's a subversion, just like in Star Wars. It's subversion.
Yeah.
He's doing some detective work with a pin. Alfred mentions how finding fingerprints won't fly because that's just not science.
I love that line. That was really cool. That was a very cool line, I thought.
But
you almost wanted Bruce to say science, bitch.
Oh, Bruce notes that there aren't any prints on the pin because the assailant was obviously using gloves, but notices some fibres that might be able to match to a coat. Obviously, the pin coming from the Dionysus Club limits the amount of people that could possibly have been wearing it. At which point, Alfred mentions that it's the funeral for Sister Leslie, and Bruce needs to go. So we cut to the funeral.
Wait, sorry. One Easter egg. Maybe no one else knows this because I'm probably like the only one that's ever watched the old 66 show. But he said something about Mrs. Cooper, the like caretaker lady, who's like the woman who's from the 66 show, who lives in the house. I was like, bam, that's an Easter egg that no one will get.
You win the title of Capital Nerd this show,
Great, Batman.
But he's our resident Batman factor.
So we're at the funeral for Sister Leslie. Most of the cast is in attendance. Harvey Dent's there. Most of the police force, including Gordon and the commissioner and everyone else, is there. It's a very sad scene. In the background, the Tim, Jason, and the other chap who we're assuming to be Dick attempts to try and rob Alfred, who catches them. Worried that they might call the police, Alfred bribes the kids to start working for him in exchange for money and food, which is a nice little touch. As the service starts to break up, Bruce runs into Hugo Strange, who says he's not there for the funeral, not knowing Leslie by person. He's there for professional reasons, citing that he believes the person that Jack the Ripper is among the crowd. And he's there to try and see if he's correct. But Bruce tries to press him for more information, but Hugo Strange says he'll only tell the Batman his theory, implying heavily that he thinks Bruce is either Batman or Bruce is the Ripper. And that Bruce, knowing lots of people, should be able to get a message to the Batman to meet Hugo at the Arkham Asylum that evening so he can tell him his theory. And so So,
Totally not shifty at all.
Well, we cut to Arkham Asylum later that night. Hugo's in his office, and there's a shadowy figure in the windowsill, who he assumes to be Batman, noting that Batman's slightly early. Hugo gives a strange about wearing masks. Gives a speech about wearing masks, noticing that there's quite a lot of tribal stuff on his wall. The figure reaches down and grabs one and puts it on himself, revealing that it's Jack the Ripper and not Batman. Hugo panics, saying that obviously that he's not a prostitute and he can't be killed by the Ripper, but the Ripper takes him anyway. At which point Batman arrives just in time to see Jack the Ripper throw Dr. Hugo Strange being thrown to his insane patients and promptly killed by Jack the Ripper. Batman gives chase. Obviously, the orderlies to Arkham Asylum only see Batman and they miss Jack the Ripper. Assuming he's killed Hugo Strange, they call the police, letting them know that he's there. Meanwhile, the Ripper flees to the rooftop of the building, where earlier in the fair scene at the start, we were introduced to a new flying Zeppelin, which the police were going to be using to patrol Gotham City. Obviously, it's passing overhead, and Jack the Ripper manages to get on board. Batman, obviously escaping onto the rooftop, uses his grappling gun to climb up onto the Zeppelin, break in, and starts fighting Jack the Ripper in what is a standout fight scene, both in animation and choreography.
I quite like the gas-powered sort of grapple gun as well. It wasn't just he actually had to sort of pump up the gas at before he fired it.
But it's quite obvious from the two of them fighting how outmatched Batman is. The Ripper is an expert hand-to-hand combatman, and he has the upper hand throughout the fight. The fight goes all over the Zeppelin from inside the cockpit onto the rooftop, where my favourite scene from the whole film, there's a sort of silhouetted fight against the moon, which is, again, very well choreographed from an animated TV show. And then while this is all going on, the police down on the ground are chasing the Zeppelin, at which point they open fire on it using pistols from hundreds of yards away, still manage to hit one of the engines and knock it out of the sky.
Gotta love them pistols.
Quite an amazing shot for the plots.
It's nice to have policemen that can actually shoot straight.
Yeah. Exactly. So during this point in time, the engine's destroyed and the Zeppelin begins to descend towards Gotham Park, where it crash lands in a fiery blaze. Obviously, the Ripper and Batman are both managed to escape. Batman's obviously quite severely injured, but the Ripper manages to get away in the confusion. Batman chases after him, but the police have managed to catch up by this point in time and end up chasing him into the city. So while he's trying to escape, they're setting up a cordon to try and catch the Batman, believing him to be the Ripper, as a result of the incident at Arkham Asylum earlier. And start opening fire on him. At which point, Gordon manages to arrive and tells him not to shoot. He wants the Batman alive and he wants to question him. Meanwhile, an injured and severely hurt Bruce Wayne has taken his mask off in order to avoid being caught by the police on sight. Manages to sneak through the city, but obviously the police set up a cordon and he's having trouble getting out. He's very almost caught by the police when a carriage pulls up, and who should be inside but Selina Kyle. She drags him in. They have a quick back and forth, sort of flirtatiously. She notices he's quite hurt, and when she pulls his coat aside, finds Batsuit underneath. At which point, she puts two and two together and decides to help him out. So, at which point they ditch most of Batman's gear, obviously realising that the coach is going to be stopped, and pretend to be making out in the coach. Well, more than making out, I think it's implied when the coach stops and the police open the door.
So they definitely ditched his costume when they were under the sheets.
Yeah. It's after they shut the door, and it's like, but the cops goes, "Lucky bastard."
Yeah.
So after they get out of the cordon, Selina, there's a huge bit of flirtatious dialogue where Selina says that as an actress she was playing the part perfectly, but Bruce needs a hell of a lot more quote unquote practice. At which point they head back to Selina's house and promptly do the deed.
Get practicing.
Get more practice in. Yeah. Shortly after this,
sexy music.
We cut to the police search, which is still ongoing in Gotham, where the Commissioner Gordon has been told by one of his bobbies that they found a body under one of the tunnels, and who should it be? But it's the body of the homeless woman who spotted Bruce from earlier, and who's obviously been killed off by the Ripper. Cut back to Bruce and Selina, who are obviously talking sort of post-coital. about the.
What the
There's no nice way of saying that.
Cigarettes in each hand.
Yes, Sheldon.
A bit of pillow talk.
They're having a bit, they're having a bit of pillow talk, and it's quite an interesting scene because they're talking about their shared histories. In that, Selina always wanted to protect people when she grew up, and then Batman obviously he'd lost his parents and wanted to prove his sense of justice. But it's interrupted by the police, who promptly kick the door in and tell them that they're there to arrest Bruce Wayne for the murder of the homeless woman. Obviously citing they have evidence, at which point Bruce says no, he'll get his best friend Harvey Dent, who's a lawyer, in to do this, and the police say don't bother, Harvey's the one that tipped you off.
I was really shocked by that. I really was when that happened. I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
okay.
So bit of a heel turn by Harvey there. So the
because of a woman.
Bit two-faced, you could say.
Yeah.
He's a bit two-faced, yes, okay. But we cut then to the courthouse where he's being arraigned. Harvey Dent's leading the prosecution, basically putting Bruce in the frame for being Jack the Ripper with some really shoddy evidence, which the judge seems to, the pin that they found on the body near Leslie, the fact that Bruce is a member of the club and that he's had ample money to afford bail and he can get out of it if he wants to, that kind of thing. And also citing the rather obvious clue that the Jack the Ripper killings only started around the time Bruce came back from Europe. It's just... So based upon all this evidence, Bruce is promptly locked up in Blackgate Penitentiary pending trial, and Harvey Dent, being the two-faced that he is, suggests that they remand him without bail because Bruce has the funds to flee.
Which I thought, at that point, I actually thought that he was Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, that seems to be what they're setting up on that. That's where I thought that was going.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
I was thinking that from back when The Mask at the mental asylum. I was like, when the guy was talking about, these are different faces, and I was like, Two-Face,
Yeah, exactly. It sort of plays on us as sort of fans who know the characters of like, Harvey, it's obviously just Harvey Dent at the moment. But he is Two-Face in most things we've seen him in. So is his Two-Face in this Jack the Ripper?
Well, there was a line earlier that I've forgotten about. I just remembered as well. I think it's when Bruce, Harvey, and Selina go to the club for the first time, and they mention that Selina mentions she knows Harvey from the past, and that he's a bit of a two-faced character because he gets a different personality when he's drunk, almost like a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. And I was like,
Yeah. Right, so I guess I'm finishing on with the final act.
Yes, go for it, Ross.
Right, so we get to Selina visiting Bruce in prison, like pleading to him, just tell him you're Batman, and then we can prove your innocence on the first murder and everything. But he's refusing to do that. But she doesn't obviously want any other woman to die, so she's going to say, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to basically do it. So she leaves to go.
Does he actually say why he doesn't want to reveal himself?
He says that Batman's got to be a symbol of purity, and that it's basically, as long as nobody's associated with the mask, he can be a symbol of, a bit like in The Dark Knight, the film, when they say he's a symbol for it being incorruptible. If it's revealed it's somebody, he can be corruptible and brought down.
So she leaves, obviously, probably to go and find Gordon and reveal his secret. But we also then cut to Bruce handing a piece of paper that he wrote. It looks like he's drawing stickmen on some paper to go to a guard to take this to Alfred for $100. And the guy's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to get bribed. But there you go. Right. If you do it in half an hour, I'll give you 200. So that persuades him. I quite like that scene. It was quite funny.
The guard doesn't even say anything. You just sort of see his expression. And being a cartoon is probably just expression in his face is just like, okay, and just takes it, puts it in his pocket.
Yeah, he just turns and walks off.
He also Bruce then starts a riot in the prison, and
interesting enough, by fighting Cyrus Gold.
Yeah,
who at this point I'm still alive.
Yeah, it's obviously Grundy, which is a nice little thing. And so he confuses everybody, impersonates a guard, and slips away. And Selina's then seen heading to the court.
I was going to say, Ross, that kind of explains how all the criminals in Arkham keep getting out. If the guards are that easily called.
Easily bribed and easily confused. I mean, it's not exactly difficult. So Selina's then heading to the courthouse to find Gordon, and then Dent appears and seems to threaten her. I thought it's quite an evil. I can't remember the exact phrase that he used, but he definitely, that's what made me kind of assume, this is definitely, he definitely seems to be Jack the Ripper here.
He was calling her like a dirty woman,
that's
like
right,
full of sin or something. That kind of the same language Jack the Ripper was using.
Yeah, so it definitely implies that. And then it cuts to the Robins. Basically, they deliver seems to be a massive box and obviously his costume. And I was like, no, it can't be the Batmobile. It's far too small for the Batmobile. This is going to build this thing. Steam-powered, like, Batmobile or something. So he suits up, and then Selina's then arriving at the fair to find Gordon. And then Batman's obviously chasing her to Gordon's house, and he finds Barbara being a bit hysterical. When he sees the rubbing of the wood in the hallway, which looks like a door or something is moved quite often there. So he finds the secret basement and basically reveals the twist that just came out of nowhere for me, that Gordon is the Ripper, and he's basically been practicing on his wife. A bit crazy. I was like, okay, this took a turn. I did not see this coming.
You remember from earlier when I said that Gordon woke up from a nightmare? In the scene following where Gordon was talking with his wife, you don't see the left-hand side of her face at all. So they keep that sort of like covered up or turned away from the camera. But then obviously, this bit you've just seen, that's the left-hand side of her face that's been sort of burnt with these acids and everything.
I know.
That's really clever.
Yeah.
That same scene where he's talking to his wife in the kitchen about putting in long hours and the stress of wiping the scum out of Gotham, it all kind of makes a horrible sense now.
Yeah.
She's not.
I thought it was quite clever as well, because she said he burnt the sin out of it or something.
Yeah.
And later on he says, like, Batman's like, what did you do to wife? And you're like, oh, wives are like the worst of all or something, like giving to men and stuff like this. It's like, Jesus, man.
He said, I'm going to try and rid the world, starting with the original sin. Or something like
that. Which wives, apparently. I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
It gets very dark, like, very quick.
Yeah, it does. Again, because I wanted to watch it again to see if you did see the side of her face, or did she have, like, a hair covering it, or what? Because obviously you weren't paying attention for that the first time, so that was a bit of a...
We're saying here that no one guessed that was the twist, right? Because I completely, threw me completely.
Yeah, I didn't see that twist coming at all. I was completely caught off guard.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I did as well.
Straight out left field.
Yeah.
It's quite good because they sort of pan around the sort of like hidden lab, and he's got like boxing gloves, which proves why he's a good fighter.
Yeah.
And like pictures of him, and it looks like in the army and stuff, like being like a sort of surgeon.
Yeah, it's mentioned a couple of times in the war that he was an army surgeon in the Civil War, which is obviously where he got all of his skills from, and that he saw a lot of horrors, and it's kind of messed with his head a bit.
Yeah, and he trained in London, wasn't it, for the boxing or something?
Yeah,
something like that.
Which is why, and they obviously used the Ripper murders in London, where obviously his trial attempts at cleaning up the city.
Yeah. So then we then cut to Selina and Gordon, and she reveals Bruce's secret, and then he just basically starts going a bit even more crazy, if he can, basically calling her a deceiving druggy whore, basically, and he's just starts trying to kill her. But she gets away, and which I really like this bit where she's got blood, where she's been like sort of cut and beaten up, and she uses the blood on the spotlight from the World Fair that we saw earlier, and creates the bat signal. That was really good. That was a nice little touch.
Yeah, that was touch.
Yeah. So then Batman leaving Gordon's house, then sees it in the sky, and heads straight to it. We then we then cut to Selina and Gordon again fight on the Ferris wheel. And Batman arrives and starts breaking out into a fight on top of the Ferris wheel car.
With that bit as well. Just so when he first obviously like crashed through the glass, classic Batman.
Yeah.
And sort of faces Gordon. You notice how Gordon was sort of talking about Jack in third person, because it was a big thing about that Jack was left-handed, and he obviously had hidden that by being right-handed all the time. And he goes, "Oh yeah, but Jack's always left-handed. That's how he does things." It was really like sort of a comment about Jekyll and Hyde that he said about Harvey Dent. It was sort of like, it felt like that for me for a minute. I was just like, has he got like a dual personality, or is he?
I've very much got that sense of it being a dual personality, because or at least something that he's into. Both of us, it's not mentioned a lot, but there are subtle clues throughout the film about how he was obviously broken by his experience at war. He's obviously very damaged, and he's kind of, obviously he mentions that the reason why he's right-handed as Gordon is because he was a ward of the nuns years ago, and they beat the left-handed habit out of him because it was an evil thing, apparently.
Yeah. So he's obviously, Gordon's aware that he's Jack the Ripper. It's not like a completely separate.
Oh
no,
yeah,
he's
obviously aware of it.
Yeah, I think he's aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because that basically goes into where he then just basically starts explaining to Bruce, why he's doing this. He's seen horrible things in war, and he just wants to cut everything out and just try and get the world back in order, even though what he's doing is probably worse than what most people are doing.
He seems to sort of say that the women are somehow whores and women are the worst, and that's the way he's got to start or something like that as well, which is why he's been killing off ladies of the night and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So while they're chatting away and getting
chatting with their fists.
Yeah, they one of the gas lanterns on the cart gets smashed and starts causing a fire, which then basically the whole Ferris wheel starts going up and the whole fairground and everything. And while in the middle of it, Gordon slips off of the carriage, and Batman, being obviously he doesn't want to kill anybody, the usual thing that he always does, helps Gordon up, and at the same time he gets handcuffed. To Gordon and Batman get handcuffed together, and he starts. I think that's when Gordon starts going really nuts and starts saying that we're going to burn the world of tomorrow, and like women are the worst things. And then while he's chatting away and basically shouting out all these crazy ideals that he thinks are right, Batman slips off his handcuff and handcuffs Gordon to the top of the cart. And a great line of saying, "I paid Houdini $300 for that trick."
That was great.
That was awesome.
Because really you can get away with it being in that time period that he would have actually met Houdini.
You could have said that he literally just came from maybe Houdini. That's where he was before he arrived in Gotham.
Well, like, in the comic stuff, it's like Zatanna's dad and sort of other escape artists.
Taught him.
This one is actually like the classic. Same with the Sherlock Holmes quote. I reckon he doesn't mention it. He doesn't. That he pays Sherlock Holmes, but I reckon he. When he met him,
he probably knows him.
Trained by him.
Didn't he say an old mentor told him, once you eliminate the possible...
He does the Sherlock quote that, so it's implied to be him. I like the way they do that, because obviously in the Victorian era, they do a very League of Extraordinary Gentlemen thing. They kind of allow it to... There's a lot of characters and fictional characters that exist in that time period. They're very easy to link into this, and I quite like the way they keep linking to all of them.
Yeah, sure. So then... basically, Gordon then just steps backwards into the fire. I'm guessing just because he just wanted to avoid being captured, and he just burnt while screaming, which is
that was dark. That was dark.
It was quite dark. Yeah. The wheel then starts to collapse under the fire, and Selina is still quite. Did she get poisoned? I can't remember. Or was she?
Yeah, he's got like a
she got drugged.
With a laudanum solution, doesn't he? And she's kind of a bit dozy, but coming out a bit. And Batman's wounded, so the two of them manage to sort of stagger off before the whole thing collapses.
Just before they get destroyed. When then Alfred and the Robins turn up in their carriage to
save the day.
Save the day. And Batman obviously has not even met the Robins yet, and he's just asking Alfred.
That's a great name for a band, Alfred and the Robins.
T-shirt, everything.
That would be good.
And copyright that as well. Damn straight.
Trademarks.
Yeah. So Bruce has never seen these kids before. So he's asking Alfred, like, are these yours? And he's like, no, sir, they're yours. Which, I thought that was another great line for Alfred.
Being Selina, if you were Selina at that point, you'd be like, what? Who the hell are they? What the hell's the matter with these kids?
And then what was it? It ends by like Selina commenting that the fair, which was their kind of like future, is all gone up in flames, and there's like all the hope and everything is gone. But then Dickie, I think they call I don't know if it's Dickie or Dick, then says, it was all fake anyway, and let's just build something better. And pretty much it.
We'll fade to black off that, doesn't it?
That concludes.
Yeah, which is sort of great, quite a sort of closed off ending as well. It's quite good. Easy guessing.
Yeah, and there's no like Easter eggs or any like post credit scenes or anything. That's just literally. Yeah.
All right, so that's the movie then. Now we've been through it. So overall, guys, how did it measure up with the other DC movies? How did you like it?
Found myself very conflicted about it, but overall, yeah, it was a good movie.
I mean, based upon the source material, they went a hell of a long way to, introducing lots of characters from the extended universe. You've got Bruce Timm back on board, so there's a lot of animated universe stuff in there, and the feel is kind of the same, but they use a lot more adult themes, which I can get away with. I kind of enjoyed the expansion on the original story, and definitely some of the newer plot twists as well. I did not see the Gordon thing coming at all.
Like for me as well, I'd read the comic just a few days before seeing it, and when you see that guy Jacob Packer in the first 2 pages, you're like, who the hell's this guy? This guy must be Jack the Ripper. So it's kind of obvious that new characters coming into it. So when I was watching this, I was like,
in the comic.
well, who's the new character? In the first act, they were going to show a new character. That guy's going to be Jack the Ripper, but they didn't. And I was like, hang about. And literally within the first 5 minutes, I honestly thought Bruce Wayne was Jack the Ripper, because he was this mysterious man, and then he said to Alfred, like, "Oh, get my evening gear." And then the next scene, you see Jack the Ripper, and I was thinking, hang about, is that the twist that Bruce Wayne? Because you're just going to assume that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but what happens if, say, Jim Gordon or Harvey Dent was Batman, and it was Jack the Ripper was actually Bruce Wayne?
I mean, better twist.
I thought I thought that's where it was going, but then after about 10-15 minutes into it, I was like, oh, no, he's definitely Batman. Okay, right, who is it? And I didn't see Jim Gordon at all.
I agree. Yeah, I thought. To be honest, I wasn't overly looking forward to this film. I've never read the comic. I've sort of read the comic after seeing the film, because I wanted to see what the comparison was like after speaking with you lot. Mostly because I'm a massive Batman fan. I'm very fussy on artwork, and if I don't enjoy the art style of the comic, I can't enjoy reading it. So there's a lot of comics like this, and also like Dark Knight Returns, I've never read because I just can't get on with the artwork. So I was not overly excited about watching this, but in a way that sort of made it better, because I was watching it and I was just like, this is actually really good.
Yeah, I think the animated series style artwork certainly helps it resonate with people that might be more familiar with that kind of universe. I will just say that I do enjoy the artwork in the original comic. It's Mike Mignola who obviously went on to create Hellboy after he did this, and obviously I'm a bit of a fan of Hellboy, so I quite like that art style. But I think his artwork in the comic gives a very gritty and grimy feel to Gotham, which is kind of what's needed for that story. But then I think the animation they went with in this works much better for the film. So yeah, I like both.
Yeah, and also like reading back through the comic, I mean, just listen to us go through the whole story. All of our favourite moments aren't actually in the comic. All the bits we sort of mentioned and sort of gone, this bit's really good, this bit's really good, they aren't in the comic. So, I mean, just to prove how much sort of better potentially they've made the story turning into a movie.
Stuff they added to it.
So that's the point. So, I mean, what are then the key differences that they've changed between the comic and the film? Clearly, Jack the Ripper's now a different person. So instead of it being the random person we didn't know in the comic, and he turned out to be Jack, it's turned out to be Gordon, which none of us saw that. Other than that, what are the other big changes that they've done?
I think mainly introduction of extended Batman universe characters. The only ones that show up in the comic really are Gordon and Bruce. There's also a mention of the Joker very briefly in one of the panels, but that's about it. And that helps flesh out the world a lot more.
I also thought the way that in the comic, the way that they sort of frame Bruce and put him in prison, I thought was done quite cheaply and quite, I don't know, it didn't really feel as well scripted as it did in the animated movie, where they, because it was just you have the old woman seeing Bruce running to the graveyard where Leslie gets killed. You have the pin, and then, but in the comic where it's just, they find a knife under his bed, don't they, which I think's been planted or something. I can't remember how the knife got there.
It's worth mentioning that the Jack the Ripper character in the comic is Uncle Jacob, a character we've never met before, who's one of Bruce's relatives, who you meet within 5 panels of the comic opening, and it's immediately obvious he's Jack the Ripper, because he's on the same boat from Bruce from Europe to America, and he's obviously setting Bruce up for the fall.
Yeah.
Because he's got access to
Because
it.
the other thing as well is in that the Uncle Jack, the Ripper, is quite a lot older, and he's not a very good fighter in the comic. He literally, as soon as he sees Batman, I think he says, "Oh my god," and basically starts running, and then gets knocked out in like 1 or 2 punches. Where in this, you've got Jim, who's a pretty good hand-to-hand, and was almost a bit better than Batman in most scenes, which was really nice to watch.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to see, Batman wasn't dominating every single fight scene. He was actually having to.
Yeah, it was a decent enemy, a decent foe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like, all in all, it sounds like everyone enjoyed it. Where do you put this? Among the best of the animated, or where?
It's definitely in the top half for me, without a doubt.
Yeah, sort of above the middle for me, at least. Anyway.
It's certainly a step up from the film that came before it, controversial as it was. No matter,
Yeah, how much they added in that and got wrong, and with this they added so much and got right. Yeah.
And what was the one from before this?
Killing Joke.
Yeah.
there we are.
It's all coming back to you now.
There we go.
I think that's a topic for another podcast. Maybe doing a retro review.
I think that just summarised it basically.
I think Dick summarised it quite well in this movie. Holy shit. Which I thought was a great 66 nod when he said that. That was so good.
I have a question for you guys. What would you rank it out of 10?
Solid
Give it a
7.
good 7.
Yeah,
Yeah,
7.
a good 7.
Okay, yeah, 7 or 8. The animation and some of the fight choreography for me elevated it above a lot of the other stuff we've seen.
I'd actually give it an 8. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this film. Going into it, I didn't really have any expectations. As you said, Killing Joke, which I'd apparently done a good job of wiping from my memory. And that was the last one, which you just kind of watched okay. So going into this one, I didn't have high expectations, but man, really enjoyed it. Was really surprised and impressed by the artwork and the music and the story. I didn't see the twist and the action in it. It was, and the choreography with that. It was, and the cinematography, the angles that they chose on it, the framing. It was, a lot of it was just, it was great. Yeah. There were some really good bits in this, so I give it an 8.
Ah. I mean, yeah, it sounds like we've all relatively agreed. For me, I'm a reserved 7. I enjoyed it. I thought the twists were great. I thought some of the choreography of the fight scenes were great. It just, for me, because I hadn't read the comics or anything, I literally knew nothing about it when I was going in to watch it. It was just, I thought it was a very odd choice for it to be in Victorian London, because, point of Batman, he's a great detective, he's a billionaire, he's got all the gadgets and everything. But obviously, given the time period it was set in, he ain't got no gadgets. So he's just Sherlock Holmes, basically.
A mask, yeah. So another question for you guys. This is I can't remember how many Batman stories they've done now, but they've done quite a few. What are you guys looking forward to now? Obviously, we've got the Suicide Squad movie coming out, and then the sort of remake of the Death of Superman that they did originally. What story? I know the obvious one.
We're talking animated at the moment.
Yeah, animated.
Right?
What stories, like comic book story, would you want to see turn into an animated movie? Minus Hush, because everyone's going to say Hush because it's the best one.
Damn you!
And I think they've said at points before that Hush is something that they are looking to.
Yeah, also Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill both said they will come back and do Hush, but they also did Killing Joke, and no one really liked it. So I don't know whether they would now, but
my choice would be, I think, the Court of Owls saga from the New 52 Scott Snyder run. I know it's been touched on briefly. I know it's been touched on very briefly in the Son of Batman series they did a few years back, but I don't think that did the true story justice. I'd like to see a full Court of Owls story.
I'd like to see a Nightfall story, I think.
Well, it's right in my mouth for us. That's what I was going to say as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. I just, we got a glimpse of it in the Dark Knight Rises film, but I want to see the proper full thing.
Now, what would be really great is if they did Batman / Yellow Lantern. He just gets the yellow ring, and that would be awesome.
That's not a comic book. You just made that up.
No!
It's like your own.
I'd love to see some more Green Lantern movies as well. And a good Flash one would be good as well. But I think
it's interesting you should say that. I know these are going to be mostly Elseworlds titles, but while I was digging through my long box to try and find an original comic, I came across a bunch of Elseworld comics here from the DC universe, which are frankly insane.
No.
So, so if I give you guys a title and a brief description, you guys tell me if you think they'd make a good animated film.
Still alive.
So obviously going on what you guys just suggested there, seeing more Green Lantern stuff, we have Batman in Darkest Night. The basic premise is, what if Abin Sur's power ring found Bruce rather than Hal Jordan?
Yes!
Okay, obviously the one word being coming out of that is being overpowered.
Yes!
That'd be quite cool to see, though. I'd like to see
there was a scene in the Batman animated show where he got the ring.
Yeah, they did that. It's also in Green Lantern Rebirth. I swear he gets it for like a couple of panels. He's like sees his parents and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is that the white ring?
It's a Green Lantern ring, right?
Maybe.
The next title in my long box is Superman: Speeding Bullets. Basically, the basic premise is, what if Superman's ship, Kal-El's ship, had crash landed in Wayne Manor? And,
and that's how Bruce's parents died.
God.
And there's the premise for Batman v Superman.
Yeah, that's Superman story I've done.
Man, that would have made that movie awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
The basic premise behind that one is that the Waynes adopt Kal-El and bring him up to be Bruce Wayne, basically, and then obviously they die in the way they did, and Superman/Batman ends up becoming a crime fighter.
So Bruce is never born? Is that how it goes? Bruce is never born. Is that right?
No, this is before Bruce is born, so it'll be they adopt Kal-El and he becomes.
I thought you were gonna say that Superman's spaceship, when it crashed into Wayne Manor, kills young Bruce.
See, that would be a much better story.
Maybe we should be writing these movies.
There you go.
Next one out of the long box, completely at random, JSA, The Liberty File. I quite like this one. It's basically, what if Batman and various members of the JSA, Dr. Midnight, Owlman, etc., were secret ops troops during World War II, which is effectively what they were, but they're kind of like, they're not powered in this, they just have code names and they're working to bring Hitler down.
That sounds interesting, but I don't think I'd care enough to see it animated.
Yeah.
Well, how about this one? Batman, the Blue, the Grey, and the Bat, which takes place during the American Civil War and poses the question, what if Batman was the Lone Ranger?
Yeah, nice, okay.
And this one is notable. I've got notes here from when I remember reading this back in the day. He goes out on a mission. He's Bruce Wayne. He's working for the president, who sends him out on a mission to the Civil War, where he dresses up as Batman, which is his alter ego. And he has a partner in the field who is a Native American whose name is Nightwing, but who, and I'm not making this up, this is a Native American. Batman's code name for him is Redbird.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I kind of like that.
This is where it starts to get a bit funny. We've got Castle of the Bat, which is effectively what if Batman was Victor Frankenstein.
What?
Yeah.
He basically brings his dad back to life after he's killed, and the dad becomes a bat creature, a la Batman, Man-Bat, and starts fighting crime.
There can't be much left after Superman's ship's landed on him. It need a pump.
What brand of paint thinner were they sniffing when they thought of this?
Oh, you wait till you get to Batman, the Doom That Came to Gotham, which is basically what if Batman was H.P. Lovecraft but without the racism.
I need to read some of these, man. Jesus, crazy.
And the last two are possibly my favourites. There's hundreds of these things, but this is the best I could find. You've got Batman, Dark Knight of the Round Table, which you can probably guess what that one's about, but it's completely insane. I'm not even going to try and describe the plot because I'd need a metric ton of paint thinners to get through that.
I want that to be an episode on Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the final one in my long box, which I think is Liam's personal favourite, is Justice League Created Equal. which I think, Liam, you're better off explaining the plot of that one, because I don't think my mind can take it much more.
Yeah, so I've got this one at home, and basically you've got this kind of gas cloud that's going through space, and it goes over Earth and wipes out all of the men. So all that's left is women and Superman. So it now means the Earth's now run by women, and it's Superman's job to repopulate the Earth.
I'd like to know what that
we actually find out that Lex Luthor actually survived because he put himself inside of his armor, unable to come out of it. And then he also helps to repopulate. So you have an army of Lex Luthor children and Superman children.
Wait. If he's got his armor sealed, he can't come out of it, then how the hell is he repopulate?
He has a little ejection tube.
He can't come out.
He uses
I
his
think
head.
maybe he had some in storage or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
What a
I'd like to
frightening
know
world that would be.
I'd like to know what that cop thought from Gotham by Gaslight thought. he thought Bruce was lucky with Selena.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. The Elseworld stories. There are some really cool ones. There are some bizarre ones in there as well. And just to before we finish up, just to answer your question about what other things to see animated. For me, what I am looking forward to, and I touched on this earlier, is the Death and Return of Superman one, which they're doing as a two-parter. I'm really looking forward to that, and I really hope that they keep the artwork, they match the artwork in the comics, kind of stay true to it. That would be fantastic, especially as they say they're doing the full story, including the Reign of the Supermen part of it. So
yeah,
if they do that and they do it right, that's going to be
animated. I'd love to see an animated Superboy in his onesie and a leather jacket, I think.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Seeing all the different Supermen that come in, the Eradicator, Cyborg Superman, Steel.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
I'm looking forward to Australian Lex Luthor and Clayface Supergirl. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, they did, if you remember so briefly, when it was I think it was the 75th anniversary of Superman, they released a little animated short that showed
going through the years,
Superman
wasn't it?
through the years.
Yeah.
And you had a very brief moment in that where it was Superman and Doomsday, or they animated it and they made it just like in the comic. That was the best part of that little animated short.
Really?
If they're doing that, but as feature length, awesome.
I wonder if they were working on it back then, and that's what gave them the idea or something.
Yeah, I think it's quite brave of them, because obviously that was the first DC animated movie they did, like Superman Doomsday, and I'm guessing back then they didn't know how people would react to these movies, so they it really cut it down into a 90-minute film, and had to cut out all the like Superboy and everything. And although it was quite a good movie, the fight between Doomsday and Superman was really cool. But the rest of it I didn't really enjoy. So the fact that they've actually gone, you know what, we didn't do that right, let's go and do it properly, I think is a quite a brave move from them.
Agreed.
You've got to give them respect for doing that as well, to go and try and fix it.
I'd love like the first part, but then the second, from basically halfway through to the end, is literally just them just fighting. Because I'm pretty sure in the comics, wasn't their fight didn't it last 10 issues? Them going through all of Metropolis and going downtown, and then they starting off with taking out the Justice League. It was quite a few comics of them fighting, and I want the...
Yeah, that's basically what the story is. It's a long, drawn-out fight.
Yeah, and I want the film to be
Doomsday appears out of nowhere, just walks in a straight line, and destroys everything in his path. Everyone that tries to stop him gets beaten in the process until Superman's big throwdown with him in Metropolis. And... that fight just goes on, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm imagining that because they're doing it as these two animated films, the first one's got to be the death of Superman, and the second one's got to be Reign of the Superman.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah, Death of Superman is out late this year, and the Reign of Superman is coming out early next year.
Yeah, so I think we're going to revisit this in a future podcast.
Yes.
Definitely.
Almost certainly.
All right, guys. So I think that's it for this week's podcast. Well, if you like this podcast, don't forget to spread the love, tell your friends, like it, comment on it wherever you find it. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Shoot us a message. We'd love to hear from you guys. And subscribe wherever you like to subscribe to podcasts. And we'll see you next time.